This book wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and honestly, I think it was better for it. Today I'll be reviewing the griMM fairy tale series, its third installment, Hansel and Gerdhart, written by W.H Lockwood. This book is very interesting and definitely dark. Now, this book follows Hansel and Gerdhart, stepbrothers who have lived in a not so great relationship with Hansel's father, Gerdhart's stepfather. And when they're chased into the dark, forbidden woods, things don't go their way, as it's eat or be eaten, until they come across what they think is their shining and very sweet salvation. However, the two brothers will soon find out that sometimes sugary sweet is hiding dangerous poison, if you get my drift. So, this book is a dark fantasy gay romance book. So real quick, if that's not your thing, you might want to click off this video. Also, it is written for adults, not kids, despite it being based off a griMM's fairy tale, which could also make sense since those stories are pretty dark for modern day children. Now, this book's content warnings are, well, just listen. This book contains dark imagery, violence, graphic violence, gay romance, gay heated scenes, and, of course, death. So if any of these are not your cup of tea, again, please click off this video, as this book will definitely not be for you. Now, as for the heat level of this book, I would definitely give it a 4.5 out of 5. It gets pretty heated. Oh yes, and another warning is they're stepbrothers in this kind of relationship, which understandably is very controversial. So again, if that makes you uncomfortable, click off the video. Just saying. Alright, so let's first of all discuss the world building. What was Hansel and Gerdhart's world like? Now, we've already been introduced to this world due to Little Red Riding Hood and Zell, the two previous books in the series, which have taken place in the same kingdom, of which there are only two in this world. However, Hansel and Gerdhart goes deeper into the dark woods. Unlike the two previous books, this book its primary location is in these dark, foreboding woods that we've heard about as this scary, evil place full of dark, unforgiving magic. And lo and behold, it truly is a terrifying place. Killer pixies, or gnomes, hunters looking for food, both human and inhuman hunters. Just all in all, it's a very terrifying situation, and not one you want to find yourself in. And Hansel and Gerdhart definitely find themselves in this situation. Now, I think personally the world building was really good. It served its purpose, and I was excited to finally look into the dark woods for more than just a few chapters or a few pages. I really like how this was the setting. I thought we would have to wait till the last book, which was about Snow White, but no, we got the dark woods in the third book. This is amazing to me, and like I said, very dark, foreboding, and unforgiving. A reflection of this book's world in general because of the drought, because of the whatever's going on with the food, making it scarce and unedible and not growing. You know, it's that kind of thing. So next up, what about the characters themselves, right? Surely they're not so dark. No. So Hansel is the oldest of the two stepbrothers. At least I think. I don't think they ever really state who's older. We just know they're stepbrothers. Hansel has red hair and a slight beard to his face. Hansel is bigger than Gerdhart, and he's definitely more built for woodcutting and other activities like that. But he isn't as worldly as Gerdhart, or at least Gerdhart claims to be. And honestly, Hansel, though, seems to be the one with his head screwed on a lot better than Gerdhart. He's more cautious, he's more protective, and he's more of the resilient type. He's willing to endure for those he loves, which in this book is Gerdhart. But poor Hansel, also not being the brightest, doesn't know how to face certain situations. I think Hansel is very relatable to those of us who feel kind of the same way, who aren't very worldly in our views or in our upbringing, that kind of thing, but have a good heart still yet. So, yeah. Also, there are quite a few people who are very big, built, burly in a way. Hansel's not burly, but he's big. Who, have a good heart. Now, Gerdhart. Gerdhart has black hair, no facial hair, and is the smaller of the two brothers. He is not as built as Hansel is, and Gerdhart is more worldly, due to the fact that Gerdhart grew up in the city before he and his mother came to live with Hansel and his father. Now, there's a whole story there of how and why Gerdhart and his mother ended up with Hansel, but you'll have to read the book to learn that part because I don't want to give you spoilers. Now, Gerdhart is kind of the smarter of the two, but he's also the more desperate. He doesn't think before he acts, unlike Hansel, who's more cautious. Which is kind of funny considering Gerdhart claims to be the more worldly of the two. It's pretty hilarious to me how Gerdhart claims to be smarter and worldlier, when in fact Hansel's cautiousness actually is more of a good trait to have in a place like the dark woods. Now, I will say, another aspect of this story is quite interesting. And, of course, that is Her Candy. Her Candy is the villain. He is the witch. Now, traditionally, the witch was an old woman, but in this book, Her Candy is a male. He is the evil witch in the candy house. Now, Herd Candy is very persuasive. He's very tricksterish. And he knows how to word things and people to bend to his whim. Not to mention his magic, which revolves around his candy. Now, again, if you want to know more about that, you'll have to read the book for yourself or read the spoiler part near the end of this review. Her Candy is pretty tall. I think he's actually taller than Hansel, who's actually pretty tall in this book. And he is a very, very cunning man who will do anything to get what he wants. And obviously, if you know the tale of Hansel and Gretel, you know Herd Candy wants to eat people. However, there's more of an explanation of why, and it's related to, of course, what's going on in the kingdom with the food issue. Now, Gerdhart is relatable in the sense of a lot of us can have this kind of prideful moment where we think we know best. We are more worldly than other people. We had more experiences. At the end of the day, that doesn't necessarily make you smarter or better than someone. And that is definitely Gerdhart, but he kind of refuses to admit that throughout majority of the book. As for her Candy, I feel he's less relatable to most people, just because he's a villain. But I guess you can kind of say that he's relatable in the sense of, he's cunning, charming. He's all in all this very interesting type of guy. But he has a secret, of course, which is eating people, which is not, hopefully not relatable to anyone watching this video. Please don't eat people. The world itself, I felt, was very immersive. I really enjoyed it. I thought it felt like I was in the dark woods, which was terrifying. It was dark. It was scary. I really enjoyed it and felt it was a really good touch to the book. Now, the writing style of this book, I don't feel it was poetic. It wasn't really poetic. It was kind of a normal writing style, a normal tempo to it. But it was definitely a dark retelling type of writing. It stays true to the original fairy tale with how dark and menacing it is, but it's not in the sense of just a pure retelling, because there are different and new aspects to this story, including the interactions in the dark woods, Gerdhart being a male instead of being a little girl named Gretel, Hansel and Gerdhart both being grown men instead of children, this kind of thing. Now, I personally feel the plot flowed pretty well. This was something that I have had issues with other books in the past, with the plot kind of being a stalemate at certain times and kind of being derailed. That is not the case here. I think this book did a fantastic job with plot. It was always at the forefront of this book, and the main plot was survive, escape, and Gerdhart and Hansel discovering their feelings for each other and their whole situation at large. And admitting their feelings for each other, which was, it fit well with the story itself. I love how the author didn't force that. It actually made sense for this book. It made sense for the story. And I really loved it. And I thought it was a really good, interesting plot. I love how dark this book was. It was definitely darker than Little Red or Zell. It was dark, unforgiving, very twisted in a way with the whole eating people situation. I also love the character design of Hansel and Gerdhart. And instead of making them look similar, which they wouldn't be because they're stepbrothers, Gerdhart looks more of a commanding force. But he's kind of putty in the hands of Gerdhart. Hansel is more of the commanding force. And he's kind of a putty in the hands of Gerdhart, who's more of the less demanding physically person. But, his mind is sharper, or he thinks his mind is sharper. And, it's a really interesting concept that I really enjoyed. I also loved her Candy not being too fanciful, if that makes sense. I like how her Candy wasn't dressed out in candy itself, or looking like he just came out of, Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. But the house itself, I really loved that. Instead of just saying, oh, it was made of candy and kind of glossing over that a little bit, there was detail to every bit of food in this house, on the house, in the house. I love it. It was really good. And I think that it was something that I personally felt was an interesting take on this story, and not something that was kind of boring at all. I think it was really interesting, and I loved how the story progressed because of Herd Candy, his house, the details. Oh my gosh, that made me hungry. Reading this book made me hungry. Okay, but the weaknesses of this book, the things I really didn't care for. Honestly, I wish it had been darker. I wish there had been a bit more detail to this book and the darker aspects. The detail just wasn't there. The dark aspects were there, but it felt tame compared to what the warning at the beginning of the book that the author gives us should have been for. It felt more tame. It felt kind of an issue for me. I just wish there had been more dark detail involved with this story. And that's honestly the only kind... Oh, there was another thing. I wish we had learned more about her Candy. There was one part in the book where something happens, and I was like, holy crap, what is that? And then when it came time to it, it was never explained. It was never really revealed. And we don't really know what her Candy was, if that makes sense without giving spoilers. Her Candy is still a mystery to me, honestly, and I know in the grand scheme of the series, he doesn't matter. He's not really a returning character, a recurring character, but still, it's something I wish we had more concrete evidence of, hey, this is who this character was, this is what this character was. So yeah. Now, all this being said, who would enjoy this book? Would I recommend this book in my rating time? I would definitely... I could see people who love dark, twisted fairy tales, especially retelling of fairy tales that are dark and twisted. I could see you enjoying this book. I could see you eating this book up. It's not as descriptive as I hoped it would have been, but it's still pretty dark and twisted. And also, if you've already read Little Red Riding Hood and Zell, or are planning to read the entire series, I understand this book might seem as a kind of a void because of the relationship in it. But at the end of the day, if you can get past that, or, you know, whatever it takes to read this book, the book is a good book. The book is interesting. The book is, quite frankly, a good read. And it is pivotal, in my opinion, to read this book in order to understand the rest of the series, because all the books connect in some way, and it's a big way and kind of a way. I'm saying way a lot, but honestly, you know, if you like dark fairy tale retellings, if you like or enjoyed the original Hansel and Grettle fairy tale from the Brothers Grimm, if you like the Brothers Grimm's work, you're going to enjoy this book. This is going to be a book for you. You're going to like it. Now, if you prefer more of a fluffy book, more of a, you know, this is a, you know, you're the kind of reader who wants to sit down to a cozy little book and enjoy yourself, you're not going to enjoy this book. This book is not for you. And I would recommend something entirely different, honestly. You're not going to like this book if you're looking for a cozy, sweet, gentle, good time. Now, as for would I recommend the book? Absolutely. I do recommend this book to people. The writing was good. The detail could have been better. But all in all, I think Lockwood did a fantastic job with this book, with what they were going for. And it feels like it belongs in this series perfectly. It's not like a filler type feel of a book, but it is a true blue, you know, belongs in the griMM series. Now, my rating. I want to give this a 4 out of 5 Rainbow Hearts. Simply because it's a good book, but it could have been darker. It could have been more in detail with the darker parts of it. And I kind of wish they had done that again, because the warning at the beginning I feel was a bit misleading in the sense of, what's going to happen. But I did enjoy this book, but again, because of that, I have to give it a 4 out of 5 Rainbow Hearts, not higher. So, alright, with that being said, let me know in the comments down below, is this a book you want to read? Or is this a book you want to skip because, it may make you uncomfortable, or it's just not your cup of tea? Let me know. Also, if you have read the book, how did you feel about how dark it was? Did you feel it was good for what it was, presenting itself to be? Or like me, do you feel like the book should have a bit more detail, a bit more explanation of the darkness and detail of that twistedness that is this book? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, make sure to like this video if you enjoy this, and make sure to subscribe if you want more book reviews of the griMM fairy tale retelling series and other books like this. I do gay romance books, and when I can, which is not very often, I do backstories / retellings of villains. I think I've only done one on the channel so far, but also I sometimes do young adults and adult books. For the record, I've done a couple of young adult books on the channel, so a little bit of everything, I guess, when it comes to gay romance. Now, this next part is going to be a bit shorter, and it is my spoiler part of the video. So if you're not looking for spoilers, or you haven't read the book yet, click off. I'm going to talk about 2 things that really interested me, and I kind of wish had been more touched on in this book. Alright, so that being said, last warning, spoiler time. Alright, so I really wish we had more information on what Her Candy was. Was Her Candy a monster with magic? Was he a male? Was he the old woman? We know he can transform because what Hansel sees in the hallway, but we don't know for certain what he was. I think it was leaning more towards he's a monster, but at the same time, I do wish that we had gotten a bit more detail, a bit more, oh, this is what Her Candy is. Like, it just kind of felt flat to me, and I really wish we had gotten that. And also, I want to know so gosh darn bad, what was Her Candy? We already know from the previous books, the sorcerer in the tower was the one who taught the evil queen her magic. Is Her Candy related to either of them? We do know that Her Candy, the sorcerer in the second book said that the woods were not just his domain, and we know old Amma, was in the woods at one point, and we also know that Her Candy lives in the woods. So I'm also interested, who else lives in those woods that might not be friendly? And what are they planning? What's going to happen next in this series? I cannot wait. I'm kind of holding off right now, and I'm finishing 2 other books, or at least one of the 2 books I'm currently reading, and then I'll start reading the Elves and the Shoemaker. But I kind of want to just delve into the Elves and the Shoemaker right now, just to see what's going to happen. But yeah, the second thing I wanted to talk about was, I kind of want to know how Hansel and Gerdhart get away with what they do at the end, because they pull a Her Candy on the rich, the evil, the corrupt. And I'm interested, how how do they get away with that? How are they sneaking around, taking these people out, getting their body, their out of the way to get back home and pull her candy on it? Like, what's going on? And I will say, I love the tie-in with Zell. I love how Zell appears at the end, and it's like, you can join the Thieves Guild if you want. And it's just like, I love it. And the darkness they felt is kind of funny to me, because you can tell it was most definitely Zell's betrothed, Zell's beloved. It is terrifying to me, and it was like, holy crap. If they do anything to Zell, he's going to get them. And it's crazy, it's terrifying, it's insane. Another thing I wanted to talk about real quick was, I want to know what ran through their mind, Hansel and Gerdhart, when they decided to be like her candy in a way, but instead of innocent people, it's evil and corrupt people. We know they did that to their Hansel's father, Gerdhart's stepfather. But I'm curious. I'm very curious, what was going through their minds? What was the full build up to that? Did they sit down and have a conversation right before they went to see the father? Like, I think it's Gerdhart or Hansel, one of the two, that's like, I know how we can survive until, we get the money we need to leave. But I can't see them not discussing that on the way back to their father's cottage. Like, I just don't see that happening. I see them talking and plotting or something. But I love that part of the book where they knock on the door and their father opens it and he's like, holy crap. And they're both standing there with axes in hand. They're like, hello, father. We're home. Or it's good to be home. And it's like, oh crap. That had to be my most favorite part of this book, was that little scene right there. I loved it. I thought it was really good, well thought out. And it kind of reminded me of The Shining, where Jack Nicholson's character breaks through the door and says, here's Johnny. It kind of reminded me of that. And I loved that. I honestly, absolutely loved that. Alright, so that's going to be it for this review. Thank you so much. I am currently not reading the next book in the series, so it's going to be a while before we get another griMM book review, but I am reading other gay romance books, and the one I'm currently reading, I'm hoping I'll have it done. If not, I do have another book I've already read that I can review, that I can do. Hopefully, though, I'll get this other book done and read. I don't think I'll be able to do it necessarily, but I'm going to try. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you guys, ladies and non-binary pals, in the next episode or video. Bye!